Esoteric Meme Breakdown episode 41, Deleuzian son or Hegelian daughter. On the right is a page from Bond of Luxembourg's prayer book, also called a Book of Hours. This miniature, that is, this illustration found within an enlightened manuscript, depicts a vertical spear-inflicted side wound on Jesus Christ's body that he received after dying on the cross when a Roman soldier poked him to make sure he had actually died. Also present in the illustration are instruments used to torture Christ. The text is part of a prayer describing Christ's suffering as he was crucified. Bond of Luxembourg was of high society and lived from 1315 to 1349. It was common in this time for the rich to have luxurious prayer books. These prayer books were made for a single person, and people often touched or kissed their books, as prayer was an intimate process, a way to communicate with God. The elephant in the room is that it looks like female reproductive parts. While we may never know if Bond was gay, it was rumored that one of her sons was gay. However, this is disputed. What is not disputed, however, is that while heteronormativity was dominant, stuff still slipped through the cracks, and the feminization of Jesus, for whatever reason, did occur. Instead of playing a PSP like in the original, the Deleuzian son is admiring the blurb on the back of Fanged and Noumena by Nick Land. The books from left to right in the foreground are Normal Life by Dean Spade, The Xenofeminist Manifesto by Laboria Kubanix, and Anti-Oedipus by Gilles Deleuze et Félix Guattari. Together, these books are a provocative statement on the character's interests regarding being, gender, capitalism, and other such topics that dance in the mind of a wide-eyed alternative Gen Zer with a penchant for the bleeding or otherwise edge. Author Nick Land, former professor, former member of the CCRU, which I've mentioned in a previous video, and current neo-fascist, was heavily inspired by the writings of Deleuze and Guattari, although that may not mean that their views are congruent. The book the son is reading was described in its slipcover blurb as Mad Black Delusianism, which is where the delusian could come from. But let's take a step back for a moment and soak in the whole thing. Let's not lose the forest for the trees. On one side we see disembodied organs. To some, that literally makes someone a daughter, simply what reproductive organs they possess. On the other side of the spectrum is a person labeled a son who is overtly feminine and isn't interested in gender norms. This would then imply that philosopher Hegel, or the Hegelian school of thought, believe in a more conservative definition of daughter, and that the Deleuzian thinkers believe in a definition founded from a more social or societal context. The way we talk about gender identity today did not exist in Hegel's time, and Hegel certainly did not take a contemporary Fox News-esque approach, regardless of how flawed his actual opinions on gender may have been. Complicating it, there was a Hegelian left and a Hegelian right that developed after his death that had differing views regarding Christianity. Deleuze and Guattari had much more different views on gender, and some now argue that they may not have even believed in it as a thing. To summarize, this is just a joke and isn't meant to be taken that seriously, and I'm sure people have already started arguing in the comments before even getting to this point in the video. Esoteric Meme Breakdown episode 42. I always check the voices of my neighbors. You just never know. This meme is a modification to a video made by ASMR king Teleboy, a creator who makes videos about being paranoid for his safety inside Airbnbs. In the case of this meme, we can see an audio analysis software interface. This is a frequency response graph as well as some spectral plots. Here, the y-axis relates to frequency, that is how high or low pitched the sound is, and amplitude is on the x-axis. So, there is a clear spike in loudness at a specific frequency. Looking at a higher fidelity chart, you can see a bit better as to what's happening. The spectrogram shows similar information but includes time on the x-axis, not a single moment like the frequency response graph. Audio frequency is on the y-axis and loudness is measured by color, white being louder and black being silent. These charts can be used for a variety of things, including to document a sound signature for a person, place, or thing, which leads us to this image that can be traced back to a picture of Myotis austroriparius, also known as the southeastern myotis, a species of small bat native to the southern United States. The graphs are of the bat's calls, created using the computer software Anabat, an acoustical analysis software specifically tailored for bat call data. On top of numerous data management tools, you can also view where the recordings were taken on built-in maps. Low-key, there's a free trial, and this looks really fun as an excuse to go outside at night and start your bat call collection. Frankly, I'm glad this person is documenting bat calls. Learning more about nature and bats is never a bad thing. Esoteric Meme Breakdown episode 43, Dream Rotation. Emil Bessels, Alexander Supertramp, Dog of Shirase Nobu, Henry Worsley, Cast of Glee. Emil Bessels was a naturalist and physician and probably the person who killed Charles Francis Hall while on an expedition to be the first group to reach the North Pole. While the expedition was off to a terrible start for numerous reasons, it is thought that Hall's murder via slow arsenic poisoning in his coffee over a long period of time was less motivated by the harsh conditions and more motivated by Bessels and Hall having the same love interest, Vinnie Ream. Both sent letters to Ream during the expedition. Ream was the first woman sculptor to be commissioned by the federal government and created multiple iconic statues. She instead later married Richard Hoxie, who told her to stop working because it was improper for Victorian women to do so, and she followed his wish. She was also friends with Albert Pike, a high-ranking Freemason and Confederate Army general. There were also rumors that Emil Bessels murdered his fiancée, opera singer Bertha Ravine. Bessels died of a stroke at age 40. Alexander Supertramp is an iconic figure who has had a successful book and movie about his short life. However, his attempt to live off the land in the Alaskan bush was less successful, and he died of starvation inside an abandoned school bus at age 24. The circumstances of his death have been cause of much debate and have already been extensively covered. Nobu Shirase's dog was a Sakhalin Husky probably not owned by Shirase, but by Yasunosuke Yamanobe, or Shinkichi Hanamori, two Ainu men who accompanied Shirase on his Antarctic voyage from 1910 to 1912. They may also have convinced Shirase to use dogs instead of Amoriski ponies for the voyage. I couldn't find a way to date this image to see if it was part of Shirase's prior voyage or the more successful 1910 voyage, but either way, many of the dogs died during both voyages, with only a few surviving from each journey. There's anecdotal evidence suggesting that multiple dogs were released back onto the island of Sakhalin upon the return. Regardless, it was probably a very good dog. Shirase lived to age 85 and was crippled with debt until age 74. He died of intestinal disruption. His death poem reads, "Even though I am not there, I will search for the treasure buried beneath the Antarctic soil until it is brought to this world." Henry Worsley was an explorer who died at age 55 trying to cross the Antarctic by himself in 2016. There is a so-called Glee curse where cast members end up being unlucky. Evidence of this includes 3 of the cast members dying at ages 31, 33, and 35. There were reports of bad to horrible behavior on set as well. An unfortunate and tragic story. So, this meme is about hanging out with ill-fated people. I think it'd be quite an interesting chill sesh. I'd also love to see the rest of the slides to this PowerPoint presentation. Esoteric Meme Breakdown episode 44, Professional Protesters. Before we get to the man, the myth, the meme, and the galaxies, Frank Chu, let's look at 2 other top protesters and quickly investigate how common quote-unquote paid protesters really are. People accuse protesters as being paid as a way to discredit the morality of their political opponents. Paid protesters, that is, an organization paying someone, for example, $200 to show up with a sign, is not common. Paid protesting is accused by people all the time because it is easy to make accusations. It's hard to back them up, but no one is paying attention by that point. This is different than astroturfing, a common political tactic where the rich create whole campaigns of organizations to pass them off as grassroots, often trying to appear like they have more members than they actually do. Anyway, onto my 3 noteworthy professional protesters. Concepcion Pichotto protested in front of the White House for 31 years straight, the longest continuous protester in U.S. history. She was against the proliferation of nuclear weapons and a proponent of peace. The White House Peace Vigil, the protest she was a part of, started in 1981 and is still going to this day. She was assisted by members of the Occupy Peace House, a nonprofit with the motive of creating a, quote, more loving, peaceful, and sustainable future. Stanley Green advocated for a low-protein diet, thinking lower protein would lower the libido and make people kinder. He protested for 25 years until his death, and it was estimated that he sold 87,000 copies of his ever-changing opus, 8 Passion Proteins with Care, that he printed on his own press. Protein is an essential nutrient, and you do feel better when you eat it. Does it do much beyond that? Yes, but not necessarily in the way he's talking about. Frank Chu is a professional protester who's protested enough about his cause that he had a now shuttered bar named after him. His cause is raising awareness to the idea that he was the star of a reality TV show that was broadcast in at least 12 other galaxies, and aliens are ripping him off and not giving him royalties. His signs are often incomprehensible, with aspects changing as the wind blows. These changes are, in my best guess, related to how much attention he can gather. A more outlandish sign is going to get more people to stop and talk to him, as the full story requires a lot of explanation. He has been paid by taking multiple sponsorships from Laughing Squid, Quizdos, and many more. He also takes individual donations. Housley could be referring to Housley Stevenson, an actor who could also be a part of Frank's reality TV show. 75,850,000 galaxies. The amount of galaxies Frank's show is currently broadcast in. He has been known to change the amount of galaxies. TASS, Hatrokennial Broadcasts. TASS is a state-owned Russian news agency. Heterocarenial blah 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 are words I could find no information about. However, they are eye-catching words and steeped in intrigue. And thank you to the person who constantly requested Frank Chu until I was forced to make this video. Esoteric Meme Breakdown Special Edition, Episode 45, Banish, the Hoarders of Esoteric Knowledge. This world cannot ask, but you can still answer. This image references many things: humanity's search for the explanation to the creation of the universe via the Bicep 2 detector array, Plato's cave allegory, and also this video series as it's merch for my new store. The esoteric imagery is then explained in my handwriting, allowing the wearer and the viewer of the shirt to spread formerly esoteric knowledge into the world. It also features an entire script of an episode written in an experimental font I made where its lines always flow from left to right. This overall design takes inspiration from myself and Castle Garrison's concept album Against the Basilisk. Lyrics from All of the Light Bulbs Are Burning Out, a song about illumination, metaphorically speaking, make up the lower body of text. On that theme, there is an excerpt from the aforementioned Plato's Republic cave allegory, in the closest I could find to the original Greek text. I also put my family's old dog, Chester, on it, as he was the original inspiration to start Friendly Puppy Music, the experimental pop obsolete media record label, which then birthed the Friendly Puppy Music Center for Basic Research, a shadowy basic research institution that I'm a part of. There's an image of a poem from the art exhibition Physical Digital Bourgeoisie Street Art and Poetry for Untrained Neural Networks, both suspended in 103 trillion carat diamond, where each subsequent line uses only letters found in the previous line, containing themes regarding to feeding computers ethical and empathy building data, and so on and so on. This is available with short and long sleeves on black and white. There is also more stuff. It can be found at shop.bjorn.al or on the TikTok shop. Thank you all so much for the support you've shown. I really appreciate it. And even if you don't like the merch or don't have money to buy it, know your positive comments mean a lot to me. Esoteric Meme Breakdown Episode 46, The Squamuloseaning. You'll never be moss. This is a third layer meme, or a modification to the original image of a cartoon drawn by reactionary cartoonist Ben Garrison. The first modification makes the meme into a pee is stored in the balls joke, which was then modified again to be about moss and lichen. This version plays off the fact that, while often visually similar, moss and lichen are two very different things. First, mosses are plants, unlike lichen. Mosses have leaves attached to a stem, reproduce via spores, sort of like ferns, and photosynthesize. They're old, evolutionarily speaking, and lack many things that quote-unquote modern plants have, such as a sophisticated vascular system or roots. Instead, moss chooses to just take in water and sun directly from their bodies and uses rhizoids to anchor them to rocks, trees, or my neighbor's camper van. Lichen is not moss! Lichens are their own thing, or their own things, as lichens are a symbiotic relationship between fungi and algae or cyanobacteria. The fungus creates the structure of the lichen, and the algae photosynthesize, feeding the fungus, while the fungus protects the algae. Many lichens have more than one fungus and may also contain a yeast. We are learning new information about lichens still today. Much like how our ancestors thought brews were just water, hops, and some sugary thing, we now know that both brews and lichen contain some level of yeast. It was just floating around in the air. We had no idea. Now that we can safely say moss and lichen are very, very different, let's move on to these labels. For starters, lichen could also fill up at the trees pump, and moss can also grow on rocks. Cyanobacteria are an essential part of lichen. If the cyanobacteria station was closed, which it wouldn't be just because of a rock outage, that would indeed hinder lichen development. However, there are mosses that have mutual relationships with cyanobacteria, as cyanobacteria is a nitrogen fixer. Also, not to go back to the original illustration, but gas pumps also don't work during a power outage. Regardless of their biology, which truly is so vastly different, mosses being part of the kingdom of plantae, and lichens being members of the kingdoms fungi and bacilli. Moss and lichen's ecological niches overlap a great deal. They're often found in close proximity to each other, and both do photosynthesize, just in different ways. They both can grow on the ground. Squamuloseaning is verbifying the word squamulose, which is a type of lichen that has overlapping scales. So, as a verb, that means you'd be making that type of lichen out of its component parts, transitioning it from a mere fungus and cyanobacteria to a lichen. So regardless of they're different, they still do basically the same things in many of the same locations. This is just convergent evolution. So for all you bryologists, mycologists, and lichenologists who have it out for each other, just know your lives maybe aren't so different from your colleagues in different fields after all. There's enough space in the forest, the sidewalks, and my neighbor's camper van for all of us. We can all get along. The end. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I have merch now. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 47, Breath In, Man. This is an amazing modification to the iconic SpongeBob Breath In Boy meme. It has grown up from boy to man, but has it matured? Perhaps not. Other than the text, SpongeBob is wearing a different shirt. It appears to have a design of a dragon on it. If you're into music and memes, you may already know this one. SpongeBob is wearing a button-up shirt from La Rocca, a fashion label started by Lloyd Johnson, whose clothing went on to be seen on album covers and worn by tons of musicians and fans in the latter half of the 20th century. The La Rocca label was spun up to capture the rockabilly market, but instead gained infamy when a certain singer of a certain group teamed up with a certain guitar player from a totally different genre. Yes, that's right. This meme is a reference to the 12-week at number 1 1999 mega hit Smooth by Santana featuring Rob Thomas of Matchbox 20, as this is the shirt Rob wore in the music video and man is the first line of the song. Also make note that this design was copied by Fat Farm and there are lookalikes of this shirt. You can tell it's the La Rocca version by the lower pockets where the Fat Farm has a single chest pocket. Don't overpay for a knockoff. Actually, don't buy one of these at all. Go to my new shop. I forgot I still need to promote that, and I swear I did not plan that merch transition. Please believe me. Anyway, give me a like, make it real, or else forget about it. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 48, Experiencing Ego Death at the World's Biggest Gas Station. Alakazam's Psychic Death. This fake clickbait thumbnail plays off of the endless amount of clickbait videos about visiting the largest gas station, a Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's doesn't officially acknowledge their Lowling, Texas location as the world's largest gas station, but as the world's largest convenience store and world's longest car wash. This could be because there is not an official formalized definition of what a gas station is, or it could be because such a definition would make the quote-unquote world's largest truck stop in Wolcott, Iowa, the largest gas station, as it has 900 truck parking places and a truck stop of nearly 130,000 square feet, even though it has fewer fuel pumps. Ego death, or psychic death, was a term created by founder of analytical philosophy and the 65th Pokemon in the Pokédex, Alakazam, Carl Jung. Ego death or psychic death is a term for when a person loses their identity or ego. This can be an epiphany moment to some, allowing them to permanently recontextualize their entire worldview. This can then fundamentally alter how the person thinks and acts going forward in their life. It is safely achieved via meditation. Adding the Alakazam descriptor is necessary, as ego death can often be used in the context of drugs or New Age spirituality, even though there is also a New Age-esque being in the background here. As Alakazam uses psychic attacks, it probably has the power to use an attack that causes psychic death. Again, this doesn't mean literally killing someone, but permanently altering their perspective. As per episode 072 in the Pokemon anime, first broadcast in Japan on November 26, 1998, Alakazam would not attack a human unless they invaded and vandalized its space. Therefore, there is reason to believe that the Lowling, Texas Buc-ee's creation process destroyed artifacts held by Alakazam, and now intruders to the space who align morally with Team Rocket, such as Cloud Chasers, will experience a psychic death. Either that or Alakazam is the manager of the Buc-ee's, and people who misuse the window washer squeegees get put in their places immediately. Either way, be respectful of your surroundings because you're not the only person who exists. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 49, on the red carpet path to 50 Oscars special edition, honorable mention, speedrun, breakdown, go. Mukbang content creator eats spicy food that is compared to a ritual sacrifice at Chichen Itza. The Antikythera mechanism is a fragment of a working model solar system and the first known example of a computer. Bait and switch meme of a thug shaking his butt that gained notoriety on Discord after Pentagon document leaks. Inside joke compilation from the R196 subreddit. Typhlosion did get a Hisuian form, and it is the only Pokemon that can learn Infernal Parade, but that is not a power-up. OOO is object-oriented ontology, a trendy way of viewing the world with less emphasis on the human perspective. Serum 2 is a $250 robust wavetable synthesizer used by loads of people in the music industry. The Idol of Irabe is a SpongeBob-adjacent meme signifying the end of the world. Scientists don't know very much about eel reproduction. The Temple of Priapus is a religion that worships done. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know which memes you'd like me to speedrun next. Also, I keep forgetting to promote my merch, shop.bjorns.al. Please go there and buy something, if you'd like. Esoteric Meme Breakdown Special Edition Episode 50, Esoteric Explanation of Simple Cat Meme. This isn't deep. This cat simply wants to knock the clock over in order to see time fly. However, time does not exist and as such cannot fly. In 1908, metaphysician J.M.E. McTaggart successfully argued that because there is no definition of time that doesn't involve a level of circularity, time has unreality. There are many theories that grapple with time, whether everyone has their own time or if there is a singular time, which relativity suggests there there is not. Contemporary physics does offer some insight as to the nature of time, but also doesn't, as time in physics is just what the clock reads. In fact, the best physics does for us is give us more questions relating to entropy and temporal structure. There may have been a time before time, but it wouldn't be called time, it would be called something else. But since it never happened, it isn't worth further discussion. 525 is a symmetrical number in base 10. We use base 10 because we have 10 fingers. A simplified fraction makes it 1/5. That doesn't inherently mean anything, but when you think it does, that's called synchronicity. It isn't inherently a bad thing. I've enjoyed my time making the first 50 episodes of the series and hope the next 50 can be better than the last, and that my body doesn't succumb to entropy just yet. I will be back soon with more, and don't forget to get a shirt from the Shopee if you'd like. This video is shorter, so take the other minute you'd spend watching and go read about one of these topics. Slightly more in-depth videos to come.